What do I expect? A big, complicated task ahead of us.
It is very, very intense. It's a lot of work, very different opinions and different ways of looking at these works.
Totally different projects in scale, in size, even different social problematics.
Each edition of the prize, there's a different jury, a total of 7 people, which come from different backgrounds.
There are some strong characters, of course. There will no doubt be disagreement. I am convinced there will be a rich debate, and I think that is perhaps the reason we're all here, because we each have a responsibility beyond ourselves in this prize.
Some of us are focused on the social problems and social environment of the buildings. Another group is more focused on form and compatibility of building to the surrounding area.
The main issue during 3 days to reduce that list of 355 to 40 works, and from these 40 works, decide who the winner of the Emerging Architect Prize will be. And then the final point will be to reach the 5 finalists, and the 5 finalists will be the ones that will be visited, and after visiting them, discussing which one should be awarded the prize.
The person who voted spends 1 minute saying why they think it's good, and then we vote.
Very strong piece of concrete architecture right near the highway for something that nobody cares for, and I think we should care for this type of everyday architecture out there in the industrial realm.
Those 4, it's gone. Yeah, this is the only way.
We can also recognize already what is typical and significant for architects in Europe now. The question is how far we can make the final judgment showing really the best exemplification of this trend.
It is an artistic project more than really an architecture intervention.
Artistic project. I mean, I would say that that's also a very artistic project.
I do think it's a great interior space. It is great acoustics. It is you are transported by the music in it.
I wanted to support the romanticism of public space in a rough part of town.
I love it because these people are dreaming of geometric and other rules of architecture of the 70s, and they're looking back at our immediate past. It's quite disturbing, and it's quite challenging, and it's fresh, and it's exciting.
Those who would like to make it one of the 40, put their hand up now. Great. Phew.
I love it. It's great.
Next one.
Within the work of this younger generation that is now included in the 40, you can see that there is a stronger attention to this need of building socially aware projects, I think.
I have a strong belief in the European city and its sustainability, its potential to grow via reform as opposed to sort of whole-scale change.
How we can densify our cities without losing the kind of livability of them, but instead actually using the densification to improve the livability of the city.
City is becoming dangerously a potential mosaic of social ghettos. It's a political issue, a social issue, but it's also for sure an architectural, very important issue.
The artistry of composition is something that I would regard as something to judge when it comes to a young, good architect. And the area of work in which architects choose to work. When I see a young architect trying to do something like social housing, that gets me going.
I would rather bet on a risky one.
I'm having a hard time seeing this as winning the Emerging as a project.
The observation about risk unsettled me because I realised that the way I'd looked at this wasn't like that. And therefore, the kind of shortlist for me are in a way quite safe.
I think the risky part was helpful because he doesn't seem risky for me.
Ecologic recycling, simple, difficult task, totally brave.
We are championing the traditional idea of social housing through the Emerging Architect project.
Je suis venue du Congo. Ça fait 5 ans que je suis ici en Belgique. On vivait dans un appartement d'une chambre. La cuisine, elle était toute petite et les salons aussi.
C'est un projet de rénovation urbaine qui est mené à Bruxelles dans des quartiers plus fragilisés et qui consiste en la construction de logements, d'équipements, mais aussi de rénovation de l'espace public.
L'Agence québécoise immobilière sociale choisit ses familles en fonction de différents critères. La composition de ménage, à savoir le nombre d'enfants, la situation familiale, la situation, on va dire, médicale, ça peut également être un critère, et puis surtout l'ancienneté aussi.
We proposed to the municipality to make more apartments. We proposed 5 and the competition was a 3-base apartments building. So we also proposed larger rooms and more rooms in order to have more large families living in it. So we have a global 23 people living in this small building.
On a attendu 8 ans pour avoir cette maison. On avait fait quelques visites, mais on n'aimait pas trop. Donc. Mais heureusement qu'on a attendu. On a attendu pour avoir cette magnifique maison. Ouais. Et j'espère qu'on va rester longtemps dedans. Et voilà.
Architecture has also a social impact on the society. And I think this building shows how a small social housing program can be more than only housing or only architecture.
So this is the first day of the trip, of the European tour of the Mies jury. There's 5 finalists, 2 of which are memorials. And memorials are not something that you build everywhere all the time. So the dominance of memorials is quite a strange occurrence. And another 2 projects are housing projects, but not single houses, large communal housing. That is, of course, reflecting what is going on at the time in Europe and the importance of the housing question. The 5th project is an office building that looks like a shed, like a barn in the middle of an old town, but it acts contemporary. This looks like a tough traveling every night in a different hotel. Nowadays, it's quite important to really visit the works because photography can be manipulated. And now we really have the chance to meet the users and hear of their experience and see by ourselves how the project performs and what the architect is saying regarding the concept of the place. We will be finished in 4 days, and the last day, on Wednesday, the decision will be made in London.
I haven't seen a building like this before. It takes the essence of what was here before.
I think it's modern and old at the same time.
It's a very delicate place to place a building in Ribe because it's neighbor to the cathedral, to the procession walk, to the old jail.
Time presence in this building, it's brand new, but it's really the pattern.
But it's also contemporary and it's building the foundation for whatever happens after.
The building is a direct response to the major challenge of this project, which was how to integrate a 1,000-year-old ruin in a new contemporary building that has to contain functions for a modern parish home.
Somehow they enlarge the space around the church because by lifting that building and keeping that ground surface, keeping on working, somehow they enlarge it.
I'm very impressed with how it gets connected with the church, and I think it adds a great domesticity to the square.
Awareness of your relationship to your surroundings, which I think that their choice of framing different views highlights.
So it has a gable roof shape that has a height of one adjoining building and then has an inclination of the next adjoining building. So we sort of merge the geometry of the surrounding buildings into this shape. And to the south, where we have a very close neighbor, which needs more space and air, we gave the building a kind of a sculptural push.
A project that's fascinated with material.
The material has a kind of non-precision. We developed a special brick for this particular building that has quite a large size. It does not express gravity like a traditional brick does.
If you want to take students on a course of how to do things, how to do metal, how to do, you go there and you can tell them it's important. The color, it's important, the detail. The floor of the stairs are oak. It's the same oak we have outside.
The wood is on purpose not treated with precision. It is allowed to give its own shape. And at the same time, the concrete wall that surrounds the ruin space is made with the help of a wooden-faced scaffolding wall to fill in the concrete. We told the workers, hey, you have to cut the pieces of wood in not precisely. We want to make gaps between the wood so that the concrete will bleed through the wood and give it a sensual texture.
Inside is really introverted, and that is a quality.
The best part of that project is the office floor and also the floor for the lecture hall. I have never seen a building like that, and I've never seen interiors like that, especially not public interiors. We have this dictatorship of white interiors, and this is the opposite, and it's really, so if you want an argument for color, that place is an argument for color.
And what impressed me was the arrangement of windows in the room that from the facade I felt could look a bit mannered and yet were absolutely convincing on the interior.
The windows are a result of a series of punches through this mass of brick. So it's a kind of a contradiction. It's a brick building that is hovering above the ground, like defying gravity. And this brick building is made very heavy with these punching holes.
Quand on arrive ici, ce qu'on voit, c'est les baraques. Les plus de 50 000 personnes qui sont passées par le camp de Rivesaltes n'ont jamais choisi d'y être. C'est un camp qui couvre à la fois la guerre d'Espagne, la Seconde Guerre mondiale, la guerre d'Algérie.
It shows really the scale of what has been done here, what has been lived here. This dramatic relationship with the small units and the big monoliths.
Tout le mémorial est déjà constitué d'une matière unique, qui est le béton. On est vraiment sur un travail de la monomatière. Et cette monomatière, donc qui est le béton, il a d'abord une couleur. Et cette couleur, c'est la même que le site, c'est la même que la terre. Il est à la fois issu de la terre et il repose en terre.
The most impressive parts of it was the silence, the big landscape and the big piece. Looks like its weight is sinking into the ground. And that gave an incredibly strong first impression.
This approach that the architects had selected to do outside as little as possible, but still to make a clear intervention, and actually a very strong one.
Because only a strong gesture could talk. You don't know what you're going to expect when you go through that ramp.
Vous savez, quand on descend la rampe d'accès, on sent bien, et c'est une des forces de l'architecture, notre corps est accompagné. On va dans la terre, on accède à quelque chose de nous-mêmes qui est aussi enfoui.
The architecture has no artificial effect, it's kind of rough, it's there.
Every architectural intervention had to do with the monolithic qualities, like where's the water, where's the technique, where's the air conditioning holes, where's everything. They are all gone, which is a great achievement.
Ce qui est important pour nous, c'est de raconter le drame qui s'est passé ici sans être dramatique. Donc cette notion-là de sérénité dans la transmission d'informations, elle est fondamentale. Et la sérénité, c'est aussi les sensations qu'on va avoir dans le bâtiment.
The central void, in my opinion, is what gives the tension to this site.
C'est un bâtiment qui est très silencieux. Il ne parle pas, il ne bavarde pas. On n'a aucune ouverture en façade. Il n'y a que des ouvertures sur des patios qui sont des ouvertures uniquement vers le ciel.
The Bijlmer was a kind of a no-go area. When you would go to live in the Bijlmer, well, it would be the last place on earth where people like to live. There has been really huge problems.
This suddenly brings back in real life experience the promises from the positive outlook of the 70s. It used to be the worst, so they took the worst of all projects and turned it into a positive feeling, which is tremendous.
The year we started was end of 2010, beginning of 2011, when there was a message in the newspaper about the flat is empty and it can be bought for €1. But it was also dirty, it was old, and the image was really bad.
We said the first challenge is to get people to this place and to put this place on the map of Amsterdam again.
It's a project which is absolutely heroic and absolutely ordinary at the same time.
Yeah.
What they did was so radical because they basically turned the idea of the megablock almost on its head. They only kept the good things and they completely transformed the things that we've understood don't work.
In our first operations, we thought, okay, if we paint the thing, it will be very beautiful. If we make it a light color, it will shine again. But then we tried another trick, and that is to peel off the paint, and that revealed a truly miraculous concrete that is almost as beautiful as travertine.
Making peace with our past. We do have these existing structures, and if we are able to look at them in a new way, to make them functional in the contemporary terms, not only in terms of facilities, but also exactly what you said, in terms of facilitating a different kind of approach to living, a different kind of relationship to living, by engaging these people in the process of creating their own space. It's not only that they own it in a monetary way, they own it in a much more personal way.
The concept of the redevelopment of Kleiburg was that the houses would be done by the people who were going to live there, so they were do-it-yourself houses.
When I entered the apartment, it looked like chaos and war. This picture is taken in September 2013. My youngest son, he's standing in my entrance.
They were, against uniformity, which was presented at the time as an idea about the collective. They instead promoted the idea of communality.
We offered them the possibilities to connect apartments horizontally and vertically, which made it possible for people to get a very big apartment with very small costs and change them and add to them in the way they wanted to. We are in a monastery, and it's a community where 8 adults and 6 children. We bought 9 apartments and put them together, like the letter T. So we are now in the vertical part of the T, which is 3 levels. Beneath, it will become a social shop, and on this level there's the neighborhood room, also the chapel on this level, and then we go up to the 3rd level. That's also the top of the T, and then we live also on the left and right side. The homes where we live in are separate, but we are connected via the balcony.
Living in the city itself is unaffordable. Many people came with the same vision to this project, to have a flat who is entirely empty, but you can build all the things you want.
Affordable housing on a scale incredibly large. This happened at the moment of greatest depression in the market.
The various uses of the ground floor. I was touched, I should say.
There was no good relationship with the ground, you could say, because the ground floor was entirely occupied with storage spaces.
We moved all the storage spaces to the floors above, so we could make housing and small commercial spaces on the ground floor. And one of the main things we also did was take out some external elevators which were on the corners. They blocked the view, they were ugly. We took them out and replaced them with new elevators inside the existing cores, next to the existing elevator.
Which then exposed again the beautiful horizontalness of this structure.
Acting in 2 or 3 very small things and in a very non-expensive way puts together a complex of arguments that I think are very important and very actual today, and finally a very European issue.
This is totally new for this area, that you put your chair outside, you drink your coffee here, and it's quiet. On a nice day, children are playing here, etc.
Being able to offer many very different people a very cheap alternative to live and to enable them to create their own dream, I think that is a very beautiful aspect of this project.
The story is about a horrible massacre that happened in 1940, committed on 22,000 Polish policemen and officers by our Russian oppressors.
Since the 90s, they have only then been able to start dealing with this or figuring out how to grasp their identity and their history. Rather than looking at it as a monument of a particular massacre, I would see it as, part of that bigger process.
I pierwszym wielkim osiągnięciem tych, którzy się zdecydowali na budowę muzeum, była lokalizacja, czyli wybór tego miejsca na Muzeum Katyńskie, bo była to forteca okupanta carskiego.
I also felt that we were witnessing an essential collaboration between artist, architect, conservation architect, and then this sort of institution.
It creates sometimes very strong interventions and effects, especially the big courtyard is a kind of a big and nice breath for the whole scenography.
The forest place in the middle of the square in front of the entrance is the symbol of the Katyń forest, which was hiding the truth about Katyń for about 50 years.
Jedno dla mnie było od pierwszej wizyty oczywiste, że jak najmniej należy naruszać tą przestrzeń architektury i zieleni, i fortyfikacyjnej części, i architektury fortyfikacyjnej.
I found it very sobering as an experience, which was moving. It was so imaginative, the layering of material.
Zdecydowaliśmy się na użycie tego materiału, ponieważ chcieliśmy w sposób wyważony połączyć współczesną architekturę z tą, którą tu zastaliśmy. Wybraliśmy beton. Beton dla mnie jest materiałem bardzo naturalnym, prostym, niezmiennym. Jest szlachetny jak kamień, wspaniale reaguje na światło, zmienia się, gdy pada deszcz. Myślę, że wspaniale się będzie tutaj starzeć.
One critic described this project as an art installation, an urban planning, and museum consensus, and I agree with that point of view.
So the procession of emotional experiences were directed by the architect and the scenographer. And since we don't do it anymore, it's very interesting to see it happen to you again.
Everything was designed, and I must say, I was really impressed with that.
And then to lead you as a big surprise through the cut.
It has a feel of contemplation,
of sorrow and sadness that grips your heart.
As a housing project, it has a responsibility to the whole neighborhood, as well as improving quality of life for people who live there.
You could feel that the people living there were involved in that project to revitalize a neighborhood. It's, I guess, the first stone of a bigger story.
It's a praise to the collaboration of the council, urban planning, and the architects.
Make the rich guys pay the poor guys. You take the money from what you sell to pay the social housing. This is sort of a Robin Hood strategy.
The pattern that the windows have and the proportion of the windows and the fenestration. The porticos set up a primary rhythm along the length of the street.
Working on sort of landscaping, creating sort of other small continuities, opening some views. I like very much to look at this building as a sort also of a monolith that is, in a way, it's carved.
The way that they had organized the space and the plan was very successful.
And then the flats above take on a slightly different pattern, and you can read it as a vertical composition or a horizontal composition. The depth is about also emphasizing, in a way, the verticality of a four-story element with the recessed balconies on the top, but it's also about creating shade so that all of the major rooms have a shaded outdoor and sheltered outdoor space for residents.
Triple the number of units is quite something, so it's a densification.
I see this as an attempt to heal and repair the city. It addresses regeneration. Most European cities have that issue to address. Becomes also an exemplar of working with existing typologies and making them contemporary. I enjoy the modesty of the architecture. I enjoy the fact that it's not seeking autonomy of form.
And then the terrace is obviously a kind of response to the early Victorian, late Georgian housing on the right. And so we drew our sort of materials palette and color from this kind of historic context.
So this is like the big moment, isn't it? I wanted to be part of a jury that did have a position, because otherwise it's just a beauty contest. I would like to imagine that the Mies Prize 2017 takes a radical position as a jury, because it says that there is greatness in modesty. Maybe, next year those projects would be judged in a different way. But we're here, we're now.
Architecture culture in this moment is in a sort of a turning point. I was grown up in a world where architecture means new building and city means expansion. And this is not the only truth of the culture.
Our society is made up of 10% rich people, about 10% poor people. But we have 80% of the population is the so-called middle class. And the strange thing in big cities nowadays is that the whole middle class has no chance of finding a place. Meaning at the end, the middle class will be forced out of the city.
First position for the flat claywork.
We have a winner, and we can be very proud.
Congratulations.